This happened years ago. I think I was around 12, and my family had moved to the countryside in the middle of nowhere. House was big, and old, and two-floored, and was made of wood, and a large yard, so of course it was great for a young boy like me and my little brother. My brother and I lived on the second floor, while our parents lived on the first floor. Stairs to the second floor were a wooden spiral staircase, which made a lot of noise once you stepped on those, definitely in the middle. Me and my brother made a lot of jokes and tried to scare each other, that the house was haunted and that ghosts lived there. I tried to be a brave big brother, but couldn't hide my fear on the first couple of nights. But over time, it went over and I didn't even think through it anymore. There was nothing to be afraid of. Some time had passed, and days came and went normally, until one night I woke up to the sound of someone walking on the stairs. I looked at my brother, who was sleeping deeply. At first I thought it was our father, who came up to see if we were already sleeping, so I kept waiting for him to come to our room, but no one came. Somehow I sensed someone was in the doorway, but I was too scared to look. I kept my eyes on my brother, knowing someone or something was there. If it was my dad, why would he keep standing in the doorway? I slowly turned my eyes to the door, and all I could see was something dark and big standing there. But right away I turned my head and I went under the pillow. I was too scared to look again. It looked like its body was big, but there was no face, and it just stood there. Next morning, I asked my parents if they came up last night, but they told me that no one came up last night. Sometime after this, I was alone in our room. My brother was in town with my parents when I heard someone walking on the stairs. I turned my head, but suddenly the sound ended, like whoever was there saw that I was looking at it. After taking a deep breath, I walked closer to the stairs, and I looked there. Empty. I walked down, making sure no one was on the first floor. I went to all the rooms in the house, but I was alone. I looked out from the window, and no one was outside. I was all alone. Before the pandemic, I crashed at my grandma's house with my family. Her house was in a relatively old neighborhood surrounded by mountains and a forest. A lot of people in the area associated it with being the richer part of the city. Most of the time, it was a quiet place. Hardly anything happened other than the occasional ambulance or loud car. I didn't mind living there. It was cramped, but it was a nice place to go with a roof over my head. Plus, my grandma liked having the company. One day, my grandma was going to go shopping. It was around 2 p.m, which meant she had to go pick up my uncle from work and bring him home soon. So she was rushing around to get a trip in before that. She left with her usual, "See you later, I'll be back soon," and closed the garage door. My mom and I waved and went on with watching whatever it was on cable TV at the time. The outer roll garage door opened, her truck poked out and left, and the door shriek closed. It was one of those old rickety ones you couldn't miss. So, this is when things started getting a little strange. 20 minutes or so pass, a commercial break, and we hear the garage door open. Out pops Grandma. She's walking up the stairs and goes up the next flight to get to her bedroom. She disappears for a while without a word, and my mom and I start to get worried. We look at each other, and she decides that she wants to go up and check on her. "Judy?" she asks. No answer. She walks around the corner to her bedroom to find it empty and nobody upstairs. She walks back to the top of the flight of the stairs and asks me if I saw her pass by. Nope. Nobody. She went down to the garage door and opened it, only to find the truck wasn't back, nor was the main door open. Where did she go? I looked out the front to see if her truck was there, and it wasn't in the driveway either. Sometimes she left it running and came back in, but it was nowhere to be seen. An hour or so later, my grandma got home with my uncle. This time, she was really home. Really, really home. Not whatever that was. So, out of curiosity, I asked her, "Hey, did you forget something earlier? Is that why you came back in?" All she could ask was what I meant. She hadn't come back in. So, who was that? When I was a kid, we moved into this nice house. 2 stories, cookie-cutter neighborhood, and decent walking trails. As I grew up in the area, it became more and more wild. Drive-bys, robberies, violence, you name it. Maybe it was paranoia. Maybe it was just poor construction, but weird stuff started happening in the house. I was busy doing the dishes when I noticed a pen out of the corner of my eye on the counter was moving. I stopped drying a plate and turned towards it. It stopped too. Was I just zoned into the dishes so much I had imagined that? I was about to pick it up to see if the counter was sloped to humor myself, and before I could, it flung itself off the counter into the floor. Me being me, put the pen back on the counter to see if it'd do it again. Nope. I shrugged it off and kept doing the dishes. Things were pretty normal after that, so I just thought nothing of it. Fast forward to the middle of college. I'm settled in for bed after a long day of classes. It's pretty late and I'm just about to fall asleep when I hear something in my room. Someone. I sit up just a little bit expecting to see someone. Hopefully my mom or dad, and not just someone who had broken in. I don't see anything until I catch it out of the corner of my eye. I turn to look, and I see a man standing over my bed. He's tall, scruffy, smells strongly of tobacco, and is wearing a dirty tank top. He has this look in his eye like he's about to do something to me. I try not to let out a scream, and I bury myself in the covers. I don't really know why I did that. Maybe I thought he wouldn't have seen me move. I looked out the bottom corner of my blanket, half expecting to see him peering back at me, but all I see is his leg. Why is he just standing there? The adrenaline hits. I rip off the covers to try to go into defensive mode. I'll fight if I have to. That's when I noticed he was gone. I looked all over the room. No one. What the I didn't even hear him walk out. Was he under my bed? No, that didn't even make sense. It was 2 inches off the ground, barely enough room for a kid, let alone a grown man. I sat for a while and listened. I couldn't hear anything out of the ordinary. Had that guy just been in my imagination? I laid back down. I kept listening. Before I knew it, I had fallen back to sleep. I tried telling my dad the next day, but he insisted I had sleep paralysis or some kind of nightmare. My mom found it creepy, and anyone else I told was just a bit freaked out. I was hoping this was the last of it. My parents had me help them get the house cleaned up for moving. I was busy vacuuming and dusting when my dad called me over into the other room for help. On my way over, I heard the sound of frantic movement against the bedroom window. I looked into the room to see the blinds colliding rapidly with the window, like it had been sucked into the wind. The slats started moving like a kid was running their hands down them. I walked closer to see if the window was open, but then it stopped, and the window wasn't open. No windows in the next room were open either. That was new. I shook it off. Maybe the moving thing was getting to me. Maybe I was just exhausted. The rest of the day went on as usual until every nook and cranny was clean. I did a second final walk around with my mom as my dad had already left. Once we both felt satisfied we hadn't left anything behind, we walked down the stairs and out the front door. As she was locking it, I got into the car and waited. Man, it was weird to leave this house after so many of my formative years were spent here. Part of me was sad, but the rest of me was excited to move on. As we pulled out of the driveway and made it onto the main street, I looked back, like I had with our first house, just to get one more look at it. And in the bedroom window on the top floor, a slat lifted up. Behind it, I could see those eyes, lit up by a cigarette. If you have a story of your own you want me to narrate, submit it to penaclipstory@hotmail.com and title it with Scary Story, along with any other quick descriptors that you think would help. If you want to be credited, please include that in the message above the story, or leave it blank and I will credit you anonymously. Paranormal or not, I want to hear your true scary story. Sometimes it helps to put your story out there. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and see you later.